Are you ready to get serious about growing more food in one small space or the same garden space that you already have? What if I told you that you could use the space that you already have, that you're already growing things into, and double or triple your harvest from that one space just by doing this one thing? Hey guys, welcome back to Heritage Hollow Homestead. Today I was trying to beat the rain, still drizzling. It's rained every single day here for like 2 months, but apparently my beans are loving it, so it's looking pretty good. So I'm out here just picking what I can while it's not raining really hard, and thinking about what I'm going to be planning and planting in the fall. So I thought I would take you guys along. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to be showing you exactly how I plan out and plant and when to plant my fall garden. It's kind of a mouthful. And you know, if you're like how I was for a long time, fall gardens were kind of like shrouded in mystery. It can be hard to find reliable information on how to and when to and what to start and grow, when to start your seeds for a fall garden, what can you really grow in a fall garden, all those things. They can be, all that information can kind of be just hidden away. It's like this big secret. Really, it's not a secret, just not a lot of people are heavy into fall gardening, which makes there less information out there just readily available. So I am going to go step by step and show you exactly how you can plan out a fall garden and how you can use the space that you're already growing in to plant your fall garden, how to work all of that out, and what all you can be planning on planting in your fall garden, when to start your seeds, where to start your seeds. Let's see how long it will take your seeds to go from a seed to harvest. And we're just going to go over a lot of things. I'm going to try to really simplify this whole scary fall gardening thing that people, I guess, they're just kind of afraid to take the plunge and try it. And also, you know, every time you walk into any big box store in the springtime, you are just bombarded with all of the plants that they are trying to push you to plant for a spring garden. So the spring garden has like become king, but really there are so many things that you will be amazed at what you can plant in your fall garden. And you know, as we are trying to grow towards being more self-sustainable, a key factor in that is always going back and looking and seeing what did our ancestors do? What did the people before us do? Their biggest push years ago in farming, you know, it was just as important to them. Their fall planting was just as important to them as their springtime planting, sometimes even more. And the reason for that was what they harvested from their fall gardens, they were able to take all of that and put it into their root cellars and their cold rooms and all of that, and that would really carry them over. And it was able to just go straight in there. Like, it didn't need, most of the things that you're going to grow in your fall garden are not going to need preserved in such a time-consuming manner as say your spring garden stuff is. So your fall root vegetables and everything are just as simple. A lot of them are as just harvesting them, and it was just taking them and putting them in the root cellar, and then having all of that to be able to get you through the wintertime without all of the extra preservation. And it was also very important before they had access to what we now, you know, use, like modern canning and such. So I just think if the fall garden was so important to my ancestors, to my great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, if it was just as important to them as their springtime garden, it should be just as important to us if we are going to live a more sustainable lifestyle like they did. So since they thought it was important, I think we should put more importance on it. And I'm really hoping the fall gardens are going to make a comeback. So to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to show you everything that I do to plan, starting right now in July, for that fall harvest way down the road. Alright, I gotta grab my seed trays over here to get started. I know it's a mess, but it is what it is. Let's get all of these. Okay. Take those and the zucchini if I can carry it all in one hand. Okay guys, we are ready to go plan our fall garden. Let's go. Oh, there's some more. And here's what I've picked so far if you would like to see. Alright, gotta take that too. I need both hands. We'll see you in a minute. Okay guys, so let's get started on how to plan and when to plant a fall garden. So first I'm just going to tell you I live in East Tennessee, and so if you live in a similar growing zone as I do, then then you can follow this exactly, and depending on your zone, if you're going to live in a warmer zone, for each zone that you would, say if you live in zone 8, you could add 2 weeks to every date that I would give you. If you live in zone 6, you would add 2 or 3, take away 2 or 3 weeks to the dates that I would give you, and so on and so forth as you got into the colder zones or the warmer zones. Okay, so where I live in East Tennessee, our one county is actually between a 6B and a 7B. We have people up on the Cumberland Plateau and up in the higher elevations of the mountains that are in 6B. The majority of our area is in 7A, and then there are a few of our more southern areas of our county that are actually in a 7B. So I just split it right down the middle, and I'd shoot for what the 7A first frost date would say, and that is what I go off of when I am planning out my fall garden. So the first thing I would tell you is that you need to find what your grow zone is, and then with that find what is your first frost date. What is the average time that frost usually comes into your area, okay? That is not a set date. Sometimes, you have a cold front that comes through earlier. Sometimes you get several extra growing weeks. We've had both. So what I do is I just get online, Google, with my zip code, what is my first frost date. Usually the Old Farmer's Almanac is your best bet. So I usually just go there, I check it, I get that date, I mark it on my calendar, okay? For us, the one that I'm going off of is, and I wrote it down here, October 23rd, I believe. And because that is the date that they are giving me, I don't want, when I plant things, if I count back for days to harvest, to really cut myself short. I don't want to get it to a point where it says that something is going to come to harvest one day before the first frost could happen. Okay, so I want to give myself a few weeks of cushion time. So since our first frost date is October 23rd, I'm going to go back to October 15th, and I'm going to circle that, and that's going to be the day that I'm going to count backwards from, with each one of the varieties of seeds that I want to start. And that way I have about a 2 week cushion, 2 weeks, somewhere around in there. We usually get well into October before we have a frost, but I'm counting back roughly a week and a half, and that's where I want to go ahead and start from. You can give yourself 2 week, 3 week cushion, because the thing with fall planting is it is not like spring planting. If you miss your window and the frost comes and it kills everything, that's it. You did all that work for nothing. So you want to give yourself quite a bit of a cushion. I may even go back to like October 7th. I don't know. Whenever I know I have enough time for everything that I'm starting that it'll be okay one way or the other. But you don't want to miss the window. Okay, so when you're starting in the springtime, if I plant a little bit later, I have all summer to harvest from. It is not that way in the fall, especially those northern grow zones. Y'all are really, you have a very limited time frame to get your fall stuff in. So, in the very warm, very southern climates, you still will have quite the extended amount of time. Some don't get a freeze or frost at all, and some of their first frost doesn't even happen well into December. So they still have plenty of time. They get a lot more wiggle room. Where we are, we're right on the verge of feeling a little more comfortable, but you get any colder than 7, once you get up into the 6, 5, you really need to give yourself a cushion, okay? So that was the first thing you need to do. Find your first frost date, circle it, count back 2 weeks at least, circle that, and that's going to be your cushion date, and that's what you're going to count back from that date, from your days to harvest, with each variety that you are going to want to start, so that you will know when to start your seeds or plant them. Okay. The second thing you need to decide is, what are you going to plant? Depending on your grow zone, this may narrow your possibilities, or it may increase your possibilities, okay? I'm going to give you a quick list, and I'll try to pop it up on here also, so you can actually visually see just how much you could be planting in your fall garden. So if you've never planted a fall garden, just think you're missing out on this crazy amount of plants that you could be harvesting from, okay? I'm going to go through them really quick. Onions, broccoli, beets, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, lettuce, kale, Swiss chard, collard greens, mustard greens, kohlrabi, peas, corn, some cucumbers. You can still plant those in the fall. You have plenty of time to do that. Spinach, turnips, your herbs, like parsley and sage, rosemary, mint. They all love the cooler weather. Chives, cabbage. I don't know if I said cabbage yet or not. And then you also have carrots and parsnips. You have radishes. Your garlic, it needs to be planted in the fall. And you can get, in a lot of areas, a second planting or a third planting of potatoes. So that is quite a list. I haven't even counted them. It's actually more varieties of stuff on this list that I will want to plant than there were of summer varieties. And I also don't know if I mentioned corn. I think I did, but corn is on there too. That's something else that and peas. I'm not really for sure if I mentioned peas or not. So many, and you can get a lot of beans. You can get a second or third round of your bush beans and some of your pole beans into your fall garden as well. So it's definitely worthwhile to consider as your things start to die out in your summer garden and produce less, to go ahead, don't let them sit there and look gross. Pull them up and start getting ready to plant your fall garden. Okay, so now we're going to talk about when do I start the seeds for the fall garden. So here it is July 20th. I'm going to be starting my seeds for these things in zone 7A. I'm going to be starting cabbage. I'm going to be starting my onion seeds, broccoli. I'm going to be starting my Brussels sprouts, my cauliflower. I'm going to go ahead and start my, I may start some more corn. I'm not for sure about that. Maybe some popcorn. Not for sure. And herbs, I'm going to be starting all of those today, right now, so that they have plenty of time to grow indoors and be transplanted out as soon as it's a little cooler out, and when they will still have plenty of time to reach maturity before that first frost day. So things like broccoli and cauliflower, especially your Brussels sprouts and onions, garlic, all of these things, they take a long time to come to maturity. Some of them though, especially all of your brassicas, like broccoli and cauliflower, your cabbage, onions, there are lots of these that I cannot start them from seed right now outdoors because the weather is too hot. These are cool weather crops. That's what they grow best in, is cool weather. It's so hot out right now that those plants are just really going to struggle. It's really going to be a struggle if I just direct sow them right now. So because of their long growing time, because of the struggle I know they would have, and the pest the pests that they would just wreak havoc on all of these cooler weather crops right now. I'm going to be starting these seeds indoors, okay? And I'm going to let them grow indoors under grow lights for 4 to 6 weeks. So that's going to put me out into late August. I'm also going to be doing a fall plant sale with these, so I'm starting lots of extra. Okay guys, so let's start with broccoli, which has a pretty long, one of the longer growing days, like days to harvest, okay? If my first frost date is October 23rd, and broccoli takes roughly 80 days to harvest, I'm going to need to count back 80 days from October 23rd to find the date that I want to make sure these transplants get in the ground, okay? So October 23rd to September 23rd would be 30 days. September 23rd to August 23rd would be 60 days. And then count back roughly another week or so. We're looking at middle of August is around when I would want to put in my broccoli in the ground. I want to start my broccoli and get from seed. So I'm actually going to add 6 more weeks to August 15th. 4 to 6 weeks. And that's going to put me right about right now where I am right now, July 20th, which is why I'm starting these longer ones right now, which were broccoli, cabbage, onions. Brussels sprouts take even longer. I'm really going to be pushing it with the Brussels sprouts, but I usually use a cover over my fall garden, which will lengthen my fall gardening time, so I'm not super worried about this because I'm using a cover. But if you live in the same area as I do, right now, July 20th may actually even be possibly too late. I don't know. If you're really pushing it, you would need to start Brussels sprouts like right now. We start our onions right now. They take a very long time. Sometimes we end up overwintering those, depending on what the weather's like. Herbs can take a while to come to maturity, so you'd want to start many of your herbs right now from seed indoors. And if you were going to do a second planting of corn for our area, that sweet corn can take a while. You can get shorter growing time varieties, so you can work with that depending on what variety you pick. I'm just doing a quick look over here on how long some of these take. Peas can take 60 to 80 days, but our peas usually hold up really well to a couple of frosts, so don't worry about it too much. I direct sow peas. I don't start them from seed. I wouldn't advise that you start peas from seed either. They do not do well when transplanted. Much better to just put them in the ground and let them do their thing. Usually they hold up really well to several frosts. Okay, so I just wanted you to see how you count back. So let's do one more thing that's a little more simple. Beets. I want to start beets from seed. I want to put them in the ground on a certain date. They have 60 days to maturity, okay? I'm going to take October 23rd, count back 60 days, which is going to put me at August 23rd. That's the day I want to transplant them. I always start counting once again. My transplant, the day I transplant them is the day that I start counting my days to maturity, okay? Not the day that I start them from seed. So from August 23rd, I want to add 4 to 6 weeks on to that, and that's when I'm going to start my beets from seed. Okay guys, so the things that take the longest, I will start from seed first, and then in a few weeks again, I will start some other things from seed, things that take less time. So I will start things like Swiss chard and my kale and my beets. I will start those in a few weeks. I don't need to start those right now. But the things like broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage, Brussels sprouts, all of those, they have to be started right now in order for me to harvest them in time, okay? Then there are just a few things that for your fall garden you do not want to start from seed. Okay, the few things that you can plant in your fall garden that you want to direct sow are going to be things like carrots and parsnips. Let's see, your garlic, obviously you're going to have to start with something to plant your garlic. Your potatoes, you're going to need seed potatoes. And radishes. Radishes come to time to harvest very quickly, like 30 days you can harvest your radishes, so there's no need to start those from seed indoors. Carrots do not do well when being transplanted. You need to sow those outdoors directly. Same thing with parsnips. And then, like I said, your garlic, your leeks. If you decide to buy onion sets, those you will not be starting from seed, depending on how you're doing things. Well, I'll start my onions from seed because I have onion seed. But you can also buy the sets, and potatoes. Obviously, you're going to be starting with seed potatoes. But the majority of things that you're going to want to grow in your fall garden, they will need to be started from seed early. If you live in a grow zone that is warmer than 7, you still have a few more weeks to get your seed started. If you live in a grow zone, that's around 7, right now is when you should be starting your seeds indoors. On all those longer, that small list of the few things that take the longest. And if you live in a cooler zone, you are going to be, your window is going to be closing, and you may not even be able to plant some things like Brussels sprouts, or that if you're starting them from seed. You can obviously, if you can find a way to go buy your starts, then you will still have time. But if you're starting them from seed, which takes 4 to 6 weeks longer, you may be out of time for some things. It's definitely as you get into those cooler grow zones, okay? Okay, and when you are starting your seeds indoors, these seeds they're cool weather crops. They're going to germinate in cooler weather. However, depending on where you choose to start your fall seeds at, you're going to need to either let that space get a little warmer and like not have the AC on, kick down quite as low, or you're going to need to pick a space that just is warmer. Use a heat mats if you're starting them in a space that you don't yourself want to burn up, but you want to start seeds. Then you will need heat mats, because your germination rates right around 70 to 75. All of these are going to germinate really nicely. They will germinate in a little bit cooler. They will germinate in cooler weather. You're going to have very slow germination time, and you don't want to use up any extra valuable growing time waiting on these to germinate, because some of them can already take a few weeks to germinate, which is one of the reasons why we do not start counting the days to harvest until the day that they go in the ground, because some of the cooler weather crops are just slow to germinate anyway, and they can take 2 to 3 weeks just to germinate and pop through the soil. So if you start your seeds, make sure that they are warm enough so that they will germinate quickly. Make sure they are under grow lights or in a very sunny location. I would suggest grow lights. Because they're cooler weather crops, they're not going to need grow lamp time like a tomato would. They're not going to need 14 hours a day of light. So you can get by with setting your grow lamps on timers of about 10 to 12 hours. Let's see, they all should do well with bottom watering. You will need to fertilize them through the water if you're not using a potting mix that already has fertilizer in it. And let's see, let me think, what else are we forgetting? Mainly, the warmer it is where you're starting these seeds, the sooner they're going to germinate, and you're just going to be better for it all around. So start some of your seeds indoors starting about now. If you're 7, in grow zone 7 or any cooler, you're going to need to get those started ASAP. And anything warmer, you're going to have a little more time. If you live in a very warm climate, you may have time to kind of succession plant these and get several harvests of some things. Okay guys, so the last part of the fall planting is trying to plan on how to make your summer garden, as it's coming to a close, directly roll into being able to plant things out into your fall garden. So this is where a little bit of planning is going to come into play whenever you get an extra evening. Try to plan out, look at what you have that's coming to the end of its harvesting life. Like, I just pulled lots of zucchini and squash, and it freed up so much space in my garden, and I was able to actually succession plant my second my second round of corn and beans in the place where my zucchini had been. And you're going to kind of do the same thing as you have other things come up. I pulled out my first round of potatoes, and in their place, because they're deep raised beds, I'm going to come back with another round of potatoes and a round of carrots. And when those come to harvest, I'm going to grow other things that that are going to need to be able to have plenty of loose free soil. May even come back with a third round of carrots, because carrots, they, for me, have been able to hold up to frost. The tops will kind of look horrible, but underneath they grow slow, but they will still grow. And I will probably be able to plant a third round of potatoes as well, because that area will be covered with a cover that will keep them from the frost getting to my potato plants. So, like, as I've just pulled up my potato plants, I'm going to be able to go back with more carrots and more potatoes, and then I will switch where they were planted at and plant a third time as well. So you need to use that mindset of being able to rotate out, looking at how long things are going to take to grow, and just find little nooks and crannies in your garden. And as something comes available, see what you have enough time to go ahead and fit in there, and go ahead and get it in the ground, okay? And then you will start the seeds for the things that have shorter growing times. Like right now, I'm going to start the things that take the longest. 2 weeks from now, I will start my next wave of seed starting for the things that are, say, 45 to 60 days to harvest. I'll start those, and then 2 weeks later, I will start from seed. I'll be into the middle of August. I'll be starting my seeds that will only take a short amount of time before I want to transplant them, 3 or 4 weeks. And those will be like my kale, lettuce, and Swiss chard, that kind of stuff. So with a little bit of planning, you will be able to double or even triple your harvest if you're willing to plant a fall garden. I know it sounds scary, but I know you can do it. I hope this has helped, and I will be making another video as I actually start my seeds in the next day or two, each time that I start them.